Keys, wallet, phone. A story of mindfulness and change. Emily's sneakers slapped against the sidewalk as she sprinted toward her building. Her backpack bounced with every step, and she muttered under her breath, "Please, please let Jenna be home." She reached the door of her apartment complex, yanked on the cold metal handle, and groaned. The door was locked. Emily dropped her head against the glass. She pulled out her phone and dialed her roommate. "Hey, Jenna? It's me. Again." She winced at the silence on the other end before Jenna's sigh came through the speaker. "Emily, seriously? I'm in the middle of a lab. Can't it wait?" "Well, no," Emily admitted, twisting a loose thread on her sleeve. "I'm locked out. Could you maybe—" Another sigh. "Fine. Come outside the lab and knock on the first window. I'll hand my keys out to you. After you get in to grab your own keys, I need you to bring mine back straight away. But this has to stop. You're like setting a world record at this point." Emily laughed weakly. "World's worst keykeeper?" "Not funny," Jenna said, then hung up. As she hurried across campus, Emily thought about all the time she was losing. 2 round trips from the apartment just a few blocks off the university grounds to the science building at the opposite side of campus, when she desperately needed to study for her midterm exams. Losing her keys was not a new thing for her since starting college. No, it was a long-standing issue. Losing keys wasn't new. She'd been the family's forgetful one since childhood, always thinking about other things when mundane details mattered most. And the forgetting problem was not limited to keys. Lunch money, library books, homework, gym clothes. Her brain was an equal opportunity forgetter. She was just always so busy thinking about other things that the more boring aspects of the everyday were not in the forefront of her mind at the moments when they needed to be. She had heard her parents and teachers say, "You'd forget your head if it wasn't screwed on straight," more times than she cared to remember. Now that she had started college, she was doing better in many ways with her forgetfulness. She got all of her assignments in on time. It helped that they were submitted online when finished instead of in paper form carried to class each morning. She now pretty much always had the spending money she needed with her. Overdue library books were still occasionally an issue. She figured a fine here and there was just her way of financially supporting the library. But the constantly forgotten keys? That problem was admittedly out of control. That evening, Emily finally collapsed onto the sagging green plaid sofa inside. Her feet ached from the multiple trips back and forth across campus. She just wanted to pull her favorite fuzzy comforter around her and zone out to some Netflix. But she had not even begun to study for her exams, which were swiftly approaching. She groaned, pulled her backpack closer to her, and took out the textbooks. "Why do I keep doing this?" she muttered as she flipped to the right chapter of the thick, battered Western civilizations text. "It's not hard. Keys, wallet, phone. That's it." A few days later, Emily was back in the same situation. She stood outside in the cold, bouncing on her heels, glaring at her locked door. "Unbelievable," she hissed. "Unbelievable." Her neighbor Grace, from across the hall, was entering the building with her wheeled cart full of groceries. She was a gentle, silver-haired woman with kind eyes who always smelled faintly of lavender. "Emily, dear, don't tell me you're stuck out here again." Emily groaned. "I think I'm cursed." "Come in for some tea while you wait," Grace said warmly, holding the security door to the lobby open behind her. Emily flashed her a grateful smile and followed Grace into the building. Inside, the small second-floor apartment smelled of chamomile and honey. Grace set out 2 mugs and listened as Emily poured out her frustration. "It's not like I don't know. Every time it happens, I say, 'Never again.' But then, bam, next week, I'm out there begging someone to let me in again. I feel so stuck in this stupid loop." Grace stirred her tea thoughtfully. "You know what this reminds me of? There's this pattern where people get stuck repeating the same mistake, never quite learning from it. I have a flower essence that might help you slow down enough to actually notice what you're doing. Emily raised an eyebrow. A flower essence? Grace smiled, crossed the room, and reached into a small wooden box on the shelf. Inside were neat rows of little bottles. She pulled one out and set it on the table. The label read, Chestnut Bud. Grace handed it to her, explaining, "It's not magic. It just supports your awareness so you'll actually learn instead of repeating the same mistakes over and over again." Emily picked up the bottle, rolling it between her fingers. "Honestly, I'll try anything at this point. My roommate is this close to strangling me." Over the next week, Emily began taking a drop each morning. It was hard to tell if the drops were helping because usually taking the drop reminded her to put her keys in her pocket right then and there, instead of leaving it for when she was running out the door. The first time she noticed a difference, though, it was almost comical. She was halfway out the door, backpack slung on her shoulder, when a little voice in her mind whispered, "Keys?" She froze. Slowly, she patted her pockets. Empty. She turned back inside, and sure enough, there they were on the counter. She snatched them up and laughed. "Well, would you look at that? Progress." Another day, she caught herself rushing out for class, earbuds already in. The elevator doors began to close before she suddenly blurted, "Wait! My keys!" She stuck her hand in the elevator door, and when it opened, she darted back to the apartment. Thankfully, Jenna hadn't left yet and opened the door. Emily gratefully rushed in and grabbed the keys from the dresser. By the end of the month, she had made it 3 whole weeks without a lockout. One evening, she knocked on Grace's door, practically beaming. "Guess who hasn't locked her keys inside once yet this month?" Emily announced, jingling them proudly in her hand. Grace chuckled, giving her a pat on the shoulder. "I'll take that as a victory for both you and Chestnut Bud." Emily grinned. "I feel like my brain finally is learning, like the lesson actually stuck this time. Who knew a little flower could make such a difference?" Grace smiled knowingly. Sometimes it just takes the right nudge. And maybe that's the beauty of Chestnut Bud. It isn't about fixing us overnight. It's about helping us notice the patterns we keep stumbling into. Sometimes all it takes is a small pause, a deep breath, and a gentle reminder to do things differently this time. For Emily, that little nudge helped her turn a daily frustration into a quiet victory. If you've ever found yourself stuck in a similar loop, misplacing your keys, overcommitting, running late, or repeating the same mistake again and again, you're not alone. We all have our forgotten keys moments. The important thing is that we keep learning, even if it's one small step or one drop at a time. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed Emily's story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss future cozy tales like this one. And I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments if you've ever had your own Chestnut Bud moment where life kept handing you the same lesson until finally it clicked. Sometimes those are the stories that teach us the most.